grab your Bible, go to Joshua chapter 10. Today, I want to minister something called extra time. If you aren't aware, or if you've been living under a rock for the past month or so, today is the World Cup final, which in America is not nearly as big of a deal as it is in Europe. Y'all know I mentioned it earlier, we were in Europe the past couple of weeks. One of the countries we were in France. We're actually in Paris. We're right there in Paris, and obviously there's a 7-hour time difference from here, okay? France was playing in one of the games, and if you've ever been to Europe, you know what I'm talking about, especially in France. There's like either a cafe or like a pub literally on every corner. And sometimes there's just literally every other spot there's a cafe. And because of the time difference, one night France was playing at 2 in the morning, okay? And they don't wait and go to bed and then wake up to see what the result was. They watch the game, not in their homes, in the cafes and the pubs at 2 in the morning. And there was one right near our hotel. So I woke up to chanting at like 3 in the morning one of the days, and I thought there was a riot or something going on. And then I realized, oh no, there's just a World Cup game and France must have just scored. So they take it really seriously in Europe. Obviously, it is even a big deal here. And after weeks of matches and goals and upsets and penalties and grown men dramatically rolling around on the ground because their ankle got tapped by somebody, today, a champion is going to be crowned. It all comes down to one match between Spain and Argentina, and there are 90 minutes to determine who will become the champ. 2 halves, 45 minutes each. But if the match is tied after 90 minutes, they don't just stop and say, well, everybody tried, good job, let's go home, right? They have what's called extra time, right? A lot of time in our American sports, we call it overtime. It's extra time, 2 additional 15-minute periods, because 90 minutes might have expired, but the outcome has not yet been settled. And I love that, because the clock can officially say that time has expired, while the official says the match ain't finished yet. I want you to hear me. Somebody walked in here today feeling like the clock had expired on your situation, and the clock has been talking to you louder than anything else. Maybe it's your financial clock. Maybe it's your career clock. Maybe it's your family clock, your spiritual clock, the clock in your marriage. But the clock's been telling you it's over. The clock's been saying you should have been further along by now. The clock is telling you it ain't going to get any better. The clock is telling you you're not going to win. But I'm telling you, just because it hasn't happened on the timeline that you created doesn't mean that it isn't going to finish in the way that God always intended for it to finish from the outset. Because God will give extra time if it isn't settled yet. And the good news is we don't have to wonder about what settled looks like. Settled looks like victory in your favor. Settled looks like triumph for you. Settled looks like the word of the Lord being fulfilled that came over your family, over your marriage, over your finances, over your health, over your kids. That's what settled looks like. Settled doesn't look like defeat in the life of a believer. Settled looks like victory. And if it says 0-0, or even if it looks like it's 3-0 and you're down, until it's over, it ain't over yet. I was watching the other day, actually, I was meeting with Pastor Garrett. I was in his office, and I meant to sit down. I wanted to watch the Argentina-England. It was Argentina-England, right? Argentina-England game. And Garrett went, oh my gosh, the game's on. I said, oh, I forgot. And we turned it on, and England was up. Are there any England fans in the room? Okay, we have. Well, Jamie, you know how this story ends. England was up. And it was like the 85th minute, okay? 90 minutes in the game. It's the 85th minute. And Argentina scores in the 85th minute and ties it up. So you know what that means, right? Extra time. In this case, it was actually just stoppage time that the official added. But in the extra time, because then the clock starts going up. If you don't watch soccer, that's one of the big differences between American sports and soccer is the clock counts up, not down, okay? So the clock is counting up. It goes to 90 minutes and it keeps going. And then Argentina scores again, right? at like the 93rd, 94th minute, they score again. They added 10 minutes of stoppage time. They're going to play to 100 minutes. They were down at the 85th minute, and it looked like it was over. And the English fans were celebrating in the stands. And the Argentinians looked defeated. But the game wasn't over yet. And even whenever it was tied at the 90th minute, the game still wasn't over yet. And then whenever Argentina scored that other goal, which Messi assisted on both of them, right? Some of you have no idea who that is. That's all right. When they scored that second goal, all of a sudden the roles flipped. And the English went from celebrating to crying, and the Argentinians went from crying to celebrating. And some of the Argentinians were still crying, but their tears turned from tears of sadness to tears of joy. And I want you to hear me. You may have felt like you're in the 85th minute and you're down, but the game isn't over yet. And God is going to deliver you and bring you victory and bring you triumph, and he will do whatever it takes for you to walk in victory and triumph. He hasn't abandoned you. He hasn't left you. He hasn't forgotten about you, and he's going to see you through into victory and into triumph. Just because it hasn't happened in the timeline that you created doesn't mean it's not going to happen. You've started declaring something's finished that God never declared finished. But I want you to hear me today. The clock is not God. The calendar is not God. Your age is not God. The diagnosis is not God. The economy is not God. The opinions of people are not God. We serve the God who created time. He was God before the first sunrise, and he will be God still after the final sunset. He's not trapped inside of the clock. The clock exists inside of his authority. The psalmist said in Psalm 31, verse 5, my times are in your hand. David doesn't say that his times are in the hands of the enemy. God holds your times in his hands. And I've heard this said before. God is never late. He just misses plenty of opportunities to be early. Right? And I want you to hear me. God is not late in your situation. He's still going to show up. Even if you're like, where are you? He goes, don't worry. Reinforcements are on the way. Even if you feel like it's overwhelming, don't worry. God's got it under control. Joshua chapter 10, verse 8. I want you to see this. We're going to look at this account really of biblical extra time and how the clock said one thing, but God's promise said extra time. Joshua chapter 10, verse 8. And the Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand. Not a man of them shall stand before you. Verse 9, Joshua therefore came upon them suddenly, having marched all night from Gilgal. So the Lord, say the Lord. Come on, say it like you mean it. The Lord routed them before Israel, killed them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, chased them along the road that goes to Beth Horon, and struck them down as far as Azekah and Makkedah. And it happened as they fled before Israel, and were on the descent of Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Israel killed with the sword. Verse 12, then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped till the people had revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. And there has been no day like it before it or after it, that the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Joshua 10 is one of the wildest stories in the Old Testament. Joshua's fighting this battle. The enemy's retreating. The victory that God promised is unfolding before them. But the sun is going down, but the assignment isn't finished. Right? They have momentum, but the assignment isn't finished. And if it gets to night, the enemy is going to be able to retreat into the darkness. So the victory that God promised isn't entirely seen yet, but time is running out. So what does Joshua do? He prophesies to time. Is that what happens? And he says, sun, stand still. In other words, we need more time to see what God promised accomplished. And God is going to give us time because this is what he promised. And what the scriptures tell us, how many of us believe the scriptures? Okay, let's try that again. How many of us believe the scriptures? What the scriptures say is that the sun stood still for about a day. In other words, God gives them an extra day to accomplish what he promised, because God told them he had delivered the enemy into their hands. So whenever time was running out, God said, don't worry, I got this. Some of you feel like time is running out, but God's here to tell you today, don't worry, I got this. Some of you feel like the window is closing, but God is here to tell you today, don't worry, I've got it under control. God says, I'm the one who can redeem the time, and I'm the one when everybody else says it's over, I say, not so fast, my friend. It ain't over until exactly what I promised you comes to pass. Some of you have been standing on promises for years and years and years and years, and you feel like the window of opportunity is closing. But I'm here to prophesy to you today, and I'm here to tell somebody your time isn't over yet. I'm here to tell you that God is still the God who makes a way where there seemed to be no way, and the same God who caused the sun to stand still until Joshua got complete victory is the same God who will redeem time and who will make a way for you where there seems to be no way and give you complete victory and triumph and will give you fulfillment of everything that he promised you and your family. Are you with me? So the sun's going down, but the assignment's not finished. The enemy's not been completely defeated. And Joshua doesn't need another weapon. He doesn't need another army. He doesn't need a better strategy. He needs more time. So he prays one of the most audacious prayers in all of Scripture. Sun, stand still. Sun, stand still. And the sun stood still until the assignment was complete. I really feel like I'm here today to preach to some people who feel like the sun is setting. And I believe that today the word over you is sun, stand still. That God's going to give you more time. I say, God, you got extra time that God's going to give you. And he'll keep giving you extra time until it looks exactly like what he promised. It's not over just because it's late. He's still going to make a way. Now, Joshua 10 opens, if we rewind for a minute, Joshua 10 opens with 5 kings joining their armies together. Now, one king is enough of a challenge. One army is enough of a challenge. But you have 5 kings that join together, and they form this coalition, 5 kingdoms, 5 armies. 5 kings who've decided to work against Joshua and the people of God. The opposition is multiplied. The pressure is intensified. The battle becomes bigger than anybody ever expected it to be. You ever been in a season like that before? Anybody in a season like that right now? Where the battle is bigger than you ever thought it was going to be, right? It's not just one thing, it's one thing after another. You know, if we want to put it in our modern vernacular, when it rains, it pours. You dealt with one issue and then another issue developed. The phone rang with bad news and then something broke. And then the unexpected bill came in the mail. And then the AC quit working in July in Florida. And that's the biggest trial of them all. I mentioned this on Wednesday night, but if you've never been to Europe, one of the things that they just don't fully believe in Europe is air conditioning. And they also just lie. You go up somewhere and be like, hey, we went up somewhere for dinner, like, hey, is there AC in here? Because it's hot. And they're like, oh, yes, sir, come in. And I was like, that is a box fan in the corner where I'm from. That is not called air conditioning, right? Y'all are liars. But I'm here now, so I guess we just here. Air conditioning broke, unexpected bill, got a bad phone call, got into a fight with your spouse, right? One thing after another thing. Then you got a diagnosis from the doctor after another thing. After another thing. And you get to the place where you say, Lord, I could have handled one king. I could have handled one issue. But why are there 5 kings standing in my front yard right now? Why is it that every day it just seems to be a new problem, a new issue, a new thing? And you know what a lot of times we will start doing is we will start petitioning God to figure out, God, what did I do wrong? God, what have I done to bring this? God, why are you judging me with this calamity? But I want to let you know something. Joshua is not out of the will of God. As a matter of fact, it's not. Now, this is where we have to have discernment, because sometimes we make bad choices that put us in bad situations, right? Amen? I mean, ever made some bad choices to put you in bad situations, right? But every bad situation is not because of a bad choice. As a matter of fact, sometimes because of good choices, the enemy mounts attacks. Sometimes because the enemy sees you making progress, he's going to pour it on all the more. And we have to be able to discern, when have we made a bad choice that we need to course correct and fix? And when is it time to suit up and fight against the enemy that's come against us, because we are in the will of God and the enemy wants to fight against us, but he isn't going to get us off course because God has promised us victory. Are you with me? We get to that place where we're showing up, we're carrying pressure, we're fighting our family, fighting for our family, or fighting your family, depends on what situation is, while dealing with financial stress, dealing with health concerns, dealing with spiritual battles, and then smiling at church like everything's fine. In this text, Joshua is not just facing a minor inconvenience. He's facing something greater than his natural strength, something greater than the natural strength of Israel, greater than his experience, greater than his own strategy, greater than what he can handle by himself. And this is the point where we often become discouraged. Because if it's something we can handle, it's not all that discouraging. But when it feels bigger than us and our ability, that's when we want to become discouraged and dismayed and heartbroken and fall apart. But the good news is this: we serve a God who shows up whenever we are at the end of our ability. God doesn't just give you ability, but he is a supernatural God who, whenever you are at the end of your ability, he shows up to fight for you. Because what we read in this text is not just that Joshua and the children of Israel routed their enemies, even though they had to show up to the battle and do their part, but where their means ended, God shows up and fights for them. And I still believe today that we serve a God who fights for us. I still believe today that God makes a way where there seems to be no way. I still believe that God will rout your enemies before you, and whenever the 5 kings show up at your front door, that God shows up and he goes, no, 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 no. You need to understand, these are my people, and I've got the backs of my people. And I'm going to fight for my people. One of the biggest things we need to understand and know about God, and we say this all the time, but sometimes it doesn't really settle, is that God is our Father. Amen? That he is our Father. How many dads we got in the room? All right. Very quiet dads today. Everybody's like, yes, sir. How many dads we got in the room, right? Now, if there's one thing I know about dads is this: you might can mess with me, but don't mess with my kids. Because you can mess with me, but if you mess with my children, you're going to see a part of me that I didn't even know existed. I've told this story before. It's been a while. We were on this is years and years and years ago. Hanny was probably 3 or 4 years old. We were on a cruise. Surprise. We were on a family cruise, and we're at dinner, and at dinner there's a dance floor, and, she's a little girl. She takes dance classes. She's a ballerina. She wants to go dance on the dance floor. So I'm like, sure, sweetheart, go ahead. This is a family cruise, okay? This is not like some sort of incredibly luxury, expensive cruise. This is a family cruise. Lots of kids on the boat. She's on the dance floor dancing. There's other kids on the dance floor dancing. And this older gentleman comes over to me and says, she needs to watch out. I was like, okay. Because I think he's just like badly communicating that, like, she's a good dancer and needs to watch out or something. I don't, like, cool. All right, man. And he keeps dancing with his partner. And he comes up to me again. He goes, she really needs to watch out. She has her playground. This is my playground. And at that point, I realize I have not misunderstood him. And I look at him and I say, she's fine, bro. At this point, this older gentleman who is sporting a Vietnam veteran cap, which he is very dishonorable to those men in the way he's acting, is threatening, well, I'm not done with the story. He's being very rude to a 3-year-old little girl. And by the way, there's other kids on the dance floor. And he's not bothering with any of them, only me and my kid. And then he comes over again after I say, she's okay, bro. And he goes, she needs to watch out. She might accidentally get hurt. Right? And at this point, I have to pray because I don't need a headline in the newspaper that says, pastor throws Vietnam veteran off of cruise ship. That's my wife. I don't think I've ever been that upset in my life, right? And here's the thing. Like, if you would have said something to me, it's one thing. But don't you threaten my kids. Don't you say anything. If you got a problem with my kids, if you do anything to threaten my children, you're going to see a side of me that you don't want to see. Are you with me? And hear me, if God is our Father and we are His children, there is something that is stirred in Him. Whenever the enemy begins to make threats against you, whenever the kings show up in your front yard, you better believe that Lord Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, the roaring lion of the tribe of Judah, is going to show up, and you don't have to fight. He's going to fight for you, and He's going to fight on your behalf, and He's going to bring you victory and triumph. Why? Because you are His kid. You are His child, and ain't nobody going to mess with you and get away with it. That's what's happening here. When the battle is bigger than my 3-year-old couldn't do anything against this guy, but Daddy could. And he didn't want to push it any further. He got real, I don't know what I said. I just know he didn't say anything else after that. Maybe I do remember, and I just don't want to repeat it. I don't know. What's happening? Joshua is taking territory. Israel's advancing. The authority of these kings is being challenged. So the enemy rises up. The enemy can form a coalition, but he can't cancel the purpose of God. Are you with me? 5 kings are still not greater than one word from God. 5 armies are not greater than the presence of God. 5 problems are not bigger than the faithfulness of our God. The battle became bigger, but God didn't become smaller. Your battle may feel like it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, but your God never becomes smaller. And at some point, we need to stop looking at how big the battle is, and we have to start talking about how big our God is. Because no matter what you are facing, God is bigger than every situation. The pressure may have increased, but God did not lose His power. The opposition might have multiplied, but God did not change His mind. Before Joshua enters into battle, God's already promised him victory. It says in Joshua chapter 10, verse 8, if you can throw that up there, do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your hand, and not a man of them shall stand before you. You can put verse 8 up. I want them to see this. The Lord said to Joshua, do not fear them, for I have delivered. Delivered is past tense. That means before the battle even happened, God had already done it. Hear me, no matter what you're facing, before the battle's even raged, God's already settled it and already done it in your favor. Notice the language. God doesn't say, I might deliver them. He doesn't say, let's see how this goes. He doesn't go, hopefully I can pull this off, or hopefully you can pull this off. He goes, I think the odds might be in your favor. He says, they've already been delivered into your hands. Before the battle begins, God always speaks. This is one of the things I love about prophetic ministry, one of the things I love about prophetic promises. Before we're ever in a battle, God's already spoken. Right? God will give you a word before you ever fight. In my life, I found again and again, God forearms me with a word before the battle. Right? I stop celebrating whenever I get good words. because that generally means there's a fight coming up. But the good news is this: he's already given me a word to stand on in the battle. God's delivered them into your hands, and not a man of them shall stand. God promised complete victory. Somebody say complete victory. The clock said time was up, but God said complete victory. The clock said time is ending, but God said complete victory. Joshua's in the battle, but the battle doesn't depend on Joshua. It depends upon the word of the Lord. Joshua had to obey, he had to march, he had to fight, but at the end of the day, Joshua was not the source of victory because the Lord fought for Israel. I want you to hear me. This isn't a motivational message today about you trying harder. This isn't about finding the hidden strength inside of yourself. What this is about is fully and totally and completely leaning on the Lord and His promise and letting God do what He can only do. Joshua had reached the end of what ordinary time could provide, but the good news is we serve a God who will still redeem time. We serve a God who will redeem the time and who will give you complete and total victory. God held the sun in place and extended the daylight until they got complete victory and the promise was secure. The sun should have gone down. The enemy should have escaped. The battle should have ended unfinished. But God said the day may be ending, but I'm not finished yet. God said the sun might be setting, but my promise isn't done yet. Hear me, some of you, you're getting up in age, but you still have promises. I want you to hear me. The sun hasn't set on your life yet. Some of you feel like there's promises and you have promises about your kids, and it feels like you've seen everything but that. And I want you to hear me. The sun hasn't set yet. The time isn't over yet. Some of you have parents that you're believing for. A lot of times we talk about kids, but some of you have parents you're believing for and for God to do things in their lives. Some of you have siblings, neighbors, co-workers, and it feels like time is closing, but God says, I'm still the God who caused the sun to stand still. And if I did it before, I can redeem time again. God did not run out of power. Israel ran out of ordinary time, but God didn't run out of options. You may feel like you're out of options, but He's not. You may feel like there's no way, but He'll make a way where there seems to be no way. The Lord is still fighting. The Lord can still redeem the time, and the Lord will still complete exactly what He began in your life. If you have a promise, don't give up just because it looks bad. If you've been believing for something, come on, Whit. If you've been believing for something, don't throw in the towel just because you feel like the time is almost up or because you feel like the odds are insurmountable. I'm telling you, He's still the God who gives extra time until you have victory. He's still the God who fights for you. He's never stopped fighting for His people. I'll say it again, He's never stopped fighting for His people. And He's still going to fight for you and still going to give you victory. Will you stand up to your feet this morning?